Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. Remember that one teacher who actually got you? Not the one who droned on about equations or dates, but the one who looked past your awkward haircut and saw something in you worth believing in? 16 years after graduating college, Mitch Albom had seemingly made it. He was a hotshot sports columnist with his name in papers across the country. Nice house perched on a hill, sleek cars in the driveway, investment portfolio growing nicely. By society's scoreboard, he was crushing it. But here's the thing about climbing ladders. Sometimes you're so focused on the next rung that you forget to look around. Old friendships fade into background noise. Promises you made with your whole heart become footnotes you'd rather not remember. Then one night, exhausted and channel surfing through the usual garbage, Mitch hears a voice that stops him cold. A news anchor asks, "Who is Morrie Schwartz?" And Mitch's stomach drops. Because he knows exactly who Morrie is, his favorite college professor, the man he swore he'd keep in touch with, the man he hasn't called in 16 years. And now Morrie's on national television, calmly discussing his own death. What happens next is the story of one final class. No lecture hall, no rows of students. Just an old man's study with a small hibiscus plant by the window. The subject wasn't listed in any course catalog. The subject was how to live before you die. And I'm about to share the lessons from that classroom. Lessons that have nothing to do with memorization and everything to do with meaning. By the time we're done, you won't just know a story about an old man and his former student. You'll have a roadmap for living with more purpose, facing your fears without flinching, and finding joy hiding in plain sight. This isn't just a book summary. It's an invitation to the most important class you never took. Let's rewind 16 years to a sweltering graduation day. Young Mitch Albom, bursting with dreams and absolutely certain the world is ready for his genius, says goodbye to his favorite professor, Morrie Schwartz. He hands him a tan briefcase with golden initials, a little "Don't Forget Me" token. Morrie, this compact man with eyes that twinkle like he's in on a joke the universe hasn't told you yet, pulls Mitch into a tight hug and asks him to stay in touch. Of course, Mitch promises easily, the way you promise things when you think you have all the time in the world. As they separate, Mitch notices tears sliding down Morrie's cheeks. But life is a river that doesn't care about your plans. Mitch moves to New York, chasing rock star dreams. Turns out, the world isn't exactly lined up to hear his music. He plays in half-empty nightclubs to crowds more interested in their drinks than his songs. For the first time in his overachieving life, he faces the bitter taste of failure. Then life doesn't just knock him down, it body slams him. His favorite uncle, his hero, dies of pancreatic cancer at 44 years old. Mitch watches this vibrant man shrivel and fade, powerless to do anything but witness the cruelty. That experience rewires something in him. He becomes obsessed with the ticking clock, convinced that time is a thief working overtime. So he ditches the music dream and throws himself into sports journalism with the intensity of someone running from ghosts. And run he does. He doesn't just work hard. He works like a man possessed. He becomes a star columnist in Detroit, adds radio host to his resume, then television personality. The house, the cars, the stock portfolio. Check, check, check. He marries a wonderful woman, but is often more married to his schedule. He's not really chasing success, though he thinks he is. He's running from his uncle's death, trying to prove that if he accomplishes enough, packs in enough wins, he can somehow cheat fate. That promise to his old professor? Buried in some mental attic alongside those unopened alumni newsletters he tosses in the trash. Meanwhile, Morrie is living an entirely different kind of life. He's still teaching at Brandeis University, but his real joy? Dancing. This man is an absolutely uninhibited dancer. Every Wednesday night, he shows up at a church in Harvard Square for Dance Free, where this old sociology professor in a t-shirt and sweatpants loses his mind to the music, eyes closed, smile plastered across his face, moving to rhythms only he can hear. No partner needed, just pure, unself-conscious joy. It's the perfect snapshot of a man madly in love with being alive. But then, the music stops. It starts small. He develops asthma, has trouble walking, stumbles for no reason. People whisper about old age creeping in, but Morrie senses something darker. After a battery of tests, blood work, urine samples, even a painful muscle biopsy from his calf, the verdict comes in August 1994. A neurologist tells Morrie and his wife Charlotte that he has amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. A merciless condition that melts your nerves like wax, leaving your body useless while your mind stays sharp. No cure, no reprieve. The doctor estimates 2 years. Walking out of that office, Morrie notices people rushing to feed parking meters, juggling grocery bags, completely absorbed in their ordinary lives. He feels like he's falling down a well, thinking, shouldn't everything stop? Doesn't anyone know what just happened to me? But the world spins on, indifferent. So Morrie makes a choice that defines everything that follows. He asks himself, do I curl up and disappear, or do I squeeze every drop from the time I have left? He refuses to disappear, refuses to treat dying like something shameful. Instead, he decides to turn his death into his final project, his last great lesson. He'll be a living textbook. Study me, he thinks. Watch me die slowly and learn something. This is the Morrie that Mitch sees flickering on his television screen. The famous newscaster Ted Koppel from Nightline has heard about this dying professor with something to say. But Morrie doesn't roll over for fame. Before agreeing to the interview, he wheels up close and announces, "Ted, I need to check you out first." He proceeds to interview the interviewer, asking about faith and what matters most to him. When Koppel asks what Morrie thinks of his show, Morrie delivers an honest punch. "I thought you were a narcissist." Koppel can't help but laugh. The interview airs. Morrie sits in his wheelchair, speaking with raw honesty and zero shame. He refuses makeup, insisting that death shouldn't be embarrassing. He tells Koppel he's decided to really live whatever time remains, with dignity, courage, and humor. When asked what terrifies him most about his slow deterioration, Morrie looks straight at Koppel and says, "Well, Ted, one day soon, someone's going to have to wipe my behind." 1,000 miles away, Mitch hears those words, "Who is Morrie Schwartz?" and goes completely numb. In that moment, he's forced to see the gap between who he promised he'd be and who he's become. So after 16 years of silence, Mitch books a flight to Boston. The reunion is painfully awkward. When Mitch pulls up, he's on his cell phone with a television producer. He spots Morrie waiting in his wheelchair on the lawn, and instead of rushing over, pretends to search for something in his car so he can finish his work call. He'll cringe at this moment forever, this perfect symbol of what he's become, a man who makes his dying professor wait while he talks business. When they finally embrace, Mitch is shocked by Morrie's frailty, but the warmth between them hasn't faded at all. "My old friend," Morrie whispers, "you've come back at last." Inside, Morrie doesn't waste precious time on small talk. "Mitch," he says gently, "you know I'm dying. Shall I tell you what it's like?" And just like that, without either of them naming it, their last class begins. That first visit becomes a weekly ritual. When Mitch's newspaper goes on strike, his calendar suddenly empties. He calls Morrie. "How about Tuesday?" Morrie suggests. Tuesday had been their day in college, so they become Tuesday people again. Every Tuesday, Mitch catches a plane from Detroit to Boston, arms loaded with bags of food, a gesture of care for a man who can barely swallow solid food anymore. At first, he thinks he's doing this for Morrie, but he quickly realizes he's doing it for himself. Those Tuesdays become a sanctuary, a place to rinse off the grime of his hyper-competitive, materialistic world. Morrie, he discovers, is building his own culture in the face of death, one that prizes human connection above all else. "The culture we have doesn't make people feel good about themselves," Morrie explains. "We're teaching the wrong things, and if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. Create your own." Morrie's culture consists of discussion groups, handwritten letters to friends, and deep, unhurried conversations. He's surrounded by people who genuinely love him. How many people can say that, he asks. Through Morrie's eyes, Mitch starts seeing his own life with uncomfortable clarity. He'd traded his dreams for a bigger paycheck without even realizing he'd made the swap. "What happened to me?" he wonders. Morrie's questions are gentle, but they land like punches. Have you found someone to share your heart with? Are you giving to your community? Are you at peace with yourself? Are you trying to be as human as you can be? Mitch decides to record their sessions, desperate to preserve Morrie's voice and wisdom. On a plane ride home, he scribbles a list of topics, the big questions he wants to explore before it's too late. Death, fear, aging, greed, marriage, family, society, forgiveness, and what makes a life meaningful. This becomes their curriculum. And so the final class unfolds, Tuesday after Tuesday. They talk about self-pity. Morrie admits he mourns his failing body every single morning. "I give myself a good cry if I need it," he explains, "but then I concentrate on all the good things still in my life. A little each morning, a few tears, and that's all." He considers himself lucky because, unlike people who die suddenly, he gets time to say goodbye properly. They talk about death. Morrie's philosophy cuts right to the bone. Everyone knows they're going to die, but nobody believes it. If we did, we'd do things differently. His advice is to follow Buddhist wisdom. Picture a little bird perched on your shoulder asking you every day, "Is today the day? Am I ready? Am I being the person I want to be?" By accepting you could die at any moment, you learn to be more alive right now. His most important teaching: once you learn how to die, you learn how to live. They talk about family. There is no foundation, no secure ground people can stand on today if it isn't family, Morrie insists. He tells Mitch that without the love from his wife and 2 sons, he's not sure he could endure this illness. He quotes his favorite poet, W.H. Auden, "Love each other or perish." This hits Mitch hard. His younger brother is fighting cancer in Spain, the same cancer that killed their uncle, but he's pushed everyone away, insisting on fighting alone. Mitch is tangled up in guilt and anger, burying himself in work to avoid feeling it. Morrie seems to understand this pain without a word being spoken. They talk about emotions. Morrie teaches Mitch the art of detachment, which isn't about ignoring feelings at all. It's the opposite. You let the experience penetrate you fully, he explains. That's how you're able to leave it. You dive into your fear, your grief, your love. You feel it completely, all the way through. Only then can you step back and say, "All right, I've experienced that. Now I need some distance for a moment." It's a way to feel deeply without being hijacked by your feelings. They talk about aging. Mitch admits he's already anxious about getting old. But Morrie tells him he actually embraces it. Aging isn't just decay, it's growth. He argues that people constantly wishing they were young again are living unfulfilled lives. If you found meaning in your life, you don't want to go back. You want to move forward. He explains that he contains every age he's ever been, all at once. I'm 3 years old, I'm 5 years old, I'm 50. I've been through all of them. How can I be envious of where you are when I've already been there myself? As the weeks roll by, Morrie's body continues its betrayal. He loses the ability to feed himself, to move his hands, to use the bathroom alone. Yet somehow his spirit seems to expand. He begins finding comfort in his dependency, a childlike pleasure in being cared for. He starts viewing his body as just a shell, a container for his soul. On their 12th Tuesday, they talk about forgiveness. Morrie tells a story about a dear friend named Norman, a sculptor who had made a bust of him years earlier. They had a falling out when Norman didn't call after Morrie's wife had serious surgery. Morrie, proud and stubborn, refused to reconcile, even when Norman reached out. Then Norman died of cancer. "I never got to forgive," Morrie says, his voice cracking. "It pains me so much now." He tells Mitch it's just as important to forgive ourselves for things we didn't do. "Make peace," he urges. "You need to make peace with yourself and everyone around you." Then, in one of their most tender moments, Morrie looks at Mitch with tears streaming down his face. "If I could have had another son," he whispers, "I would have liked it to be you." Mitch, who has built fortress walls around his heart, feels them crumble to dust. All he's afraid of now is saying goodbye. Their final Tuesday together isn't a class at all. It's a farewell. Morrie is confined to bed, shrunken to the size of a child. He can barely speak, his voice a thin rasp. Mitch holds his fragile hand. "I don't know how to say goodbye," Mitch confesses. Morrie pulls Mitch's hand to his chest. "This is how we say goodbye." He looks directly into Mitch's eyes and manages one final lesson. "Love you," he rasps. "I love you too, Coach," Mitch replies. As Mitch's eyes fill with tears, he sees his old professor give one last faint smile. Morrie had finally made him cry. Morrie dies on a Saturday morning. He slips into a coma but waits until everyone he loves steps out of the room for just a moment to get coffee. And in that brief window of solitude, he lets go. He dies exactly as he lived those final months, on his own terms, peacefully, without making a scene. The funeral is held on a damp, windy morning. As Mitch stands beside the grave, he glances at his watch. It's Tuesday. But the teaching doesn't end. Not long after Morrie's death, Mitch finally reaches his brother in Spain. He tells him he loves him, words he'd never said before. A few days later, his brother sends a funny, rambling fax, signing off with a joke. Mitch laughs until tears run down his face. The connection he'd been desperate for is finally rekindling. The last class has ended, but the lesson is just beginning. The teaching goes on. So why has this quiet, simple story become one of the most cherished memoirs of our time? There are no explosions, no corporate scandals, no plot twists worthy of a thriller. Its power lives in its profound simplicity and unflinching honesty. Morrie Schwartz offers us something our modern culture rarely provides, a chance to pause and examine our own lives through the eyes of someone standing at the finish line. He reminds us that the frantic pace, the endless hunger for more money, more status, more stuff, is really just noise distracting us from what actually feeds the soul. His lessons aren't revolutionary. They're timeless truths we've heard in different forms throughout history. But hearing them from a man actively dying gives them an urgency and clarity that's impossible to ignore. Morrie strips away all the nonsense and shows us what remains at the end: love, connection, forgiveness, and the peace that comes from a life lived with intention. This book is medicine for our anxious age. In a world obsessed with youth, Morrie teaches us to embrace aging as growth, not just decline. In a culture that hides death away like a shameful secret, Morrie invites us to look at it directly, understand it, and use it as a tool to live more fully. And in a society that often feels fragmented and isolating, he champions the power of community, family, and what he calls our investment in the human family. So what can we actually do with this? Here are 3 practices inspired by Morrie's wisdom that you can start today. First, try Morrie's little bird on the shoulder exercise. For just 1 minute each day, ask yourself, is today the day? Am I ready? Am I being the person I want to be? This isn't morbid, it's clarifying. It creates gentle urgency, a reminder to live with intention, and align your daily actions with your deeper values, so you accumulate fewer regrets. Second, practice being fully present. The next time you're with someone you care about, a friend, a parent, a sibling, consciously put away your phone and just listen. Look them in the eye. Don't plan your response or mentally run through your to-do list. As Morrie said, "When I'm with you, I'm with you." This simple act of undivided attention is one of the most powerful gifts you can give, and it will deepen your relationships in ways you can't imagine. And third, consciously create your own culture. Identify one thing society insists is important that actually makes you feel hollow. Maybe it's the pressure to own the latest gadget, or to look a certain way, or to be constantly busy. This week, deliberately reject that pressure. Instead of scrolling through social media, call a friend. Instead of buying something new, spend time outside. Take one small step toward building a life based on your own values, not the ones being advertised to you. That was the book's summary of Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. We've touched on the core lessons today, but here's the truth. A summary is like looking at a photograph of a delicious meal. You can see what it's made of, but you can't taste it. The real nourishment comes from experiencing the book yourself, from those quiet moments when Morrie's humor or a particular piece of wisdom lands in a way you didn't expect. This summary is your invitation to the table. If anything we've talked about today has stirred something in you, grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely shift how you see your life. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel so you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.